Ever wish you could get honest answers to those real estate questions that just seem to pop up when you're thinking about buying or selling a home?
Well, today we are going to dive into the most frequently asked questions from both buyers and sellers that we get on a weekly basis.
Welcome to Married in Real Estate. I'm Matthew Dalke.
And I'm Karen Dalke. We have a top performing real estate team south of Atlanta.
Whether you're buying your very first home, maybe upsizing, downsizing your current home, or you're thinking about selling in this market, this episode will really help you with clarity and confidence to move forward.
That's right, and plus we'll have a few insider tips to save you time and money, so stick with us.
The number one question we get asked is now a good time to buy a house? The short answer, yes, if it makes sense to you.
As you may have heard, listing inventory is sitting just a little bit longer than in recent years. So as a buyer, this can be a great opportunity to have more choices. You're gonna have less competition, fewer multiple offers, so maybe that's a situation as a buyer that's gonna work for you.
Trying to time the market is nearly impossible. What we look at is when interest rates are higher, usually there are more homes that sit on the market. As Karen mentioned, you have more wiggle room to negotiate on those prices. You have more options to buy.
That's right.
And you just have less competition. However, on the opposite spectrum, we see buyers waiting for those rates to get a little more affordable. But when that happens, everybody else is sitting around waiting. They're going to be out there shopping too. So it's going to create those multiple offers again. And you're going to end up spending $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more for the same house. And you'll have worse terms on your contract. Maybe you don't get due diligence, inspections, a lot of things that are important for buyers. So what we say is every market's different, but what's most important is it something that's important to you and your household? Does it make sense? And financially, does it make sense for you? I really like this time though, because like we said, for buyers right now, it's been brutal for the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, it really has. Multiple offers, you're losing out on homes you're falling in love with. And now, buyers finally get a little bit of negotiations and choices, and it's nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
So really the key is to focus on your financial readiness and not just the market conditions. The second question we get a lot is, do I need to sell before I buy? Really, as the seller, only you, after talking to your lender and looking at all of your financials, can determine if you need to sell before you buy. But I will flip the script and say, think about it from the seller's perspective. If you were a seller and you were presented with an offer and the buyer did not have to sell their home, or maybe they were already under contract on something, wouldn't that make you feel like that was a more secure offer? Being contingent on a home sale can make it a little bit harder to go under contract, but there are ways around it that Matthew's going to talk about.
Yes. Karen, you brought up a really good point. When sellers get a contract we're seeing and it's contingent, they're a lot less likely to negotiate. So I have a couple really great tips for you and ways around it. So if your lender says you can qualify to buy a house without selling, here's a really cool thing. It's called a recast. So you would go ahead and list your house, find the house you're buying, put a contract on it. And if we or whoever your agent is, has not sold the house before you close on your new house, you'd continue on, you'd close on your new house, you'd sell your old house, and all of the proceeds you received from that closing, you would take and you would give to your mortgage company, and they would do what's called a recast of your mortgage. So if your principal is $500,000 and you got $100,000 from your house, they would recast the loan so your new principal amount is $400,000. So it wouldn't change your interest rate. It's not a refinance, but it would readjust your payments. In some lenders, it's free. Others, it may be a $300 to $500 fee, much cheaper than a refinance. So that's a really, really great option. Option 2, there are programs that allow you to buy without selling. So what that means is I have a company come out, they look at my house, they give me a cash offer, and usually they give me 4 to 6 months to sell my house. Well, what that does is now the lender does not count that against your DTI, which is your debt to income ratios. Your current house is no longer counted. So you can go out, buy your new house, sell that house, and you have, like I said, usually 4 to 6 months. And it's typically about a 1 to 1.5% fee that they charge on the price of the sale of your current house, not the new one.
Yeah. Those both sound like great options. What I'm hearing is, in addition to partnering with a top-notch real estate team, you also need to partner with a great lender for those situations to see really what situation works out best for you. Maybe you can go into something contingent, maybe you do need to sell, but it's important to have all of the professionals behind you kind of leading the way with that.
Absolutely. The third question we get often when I go on listing appointments from sellers is, what updates should I make to my house before I sell?
That's right. And really not all updates or renovations are worth the cost. We can take a look at it and see what that looks like. But really the best return can come from just those really simple things. Maybe it's painting the front door, having a fresh coat of paint. Maybe it's painting the living room. Maybe it's just cleaning the gutters, maybe freshening the landscape and the pine straw up front. Sometimes it just doesn't have to cost a lot to maybe do that quick improvement to the curb appeal or the instant appeal to the home when they walk in.
Great job, Karen. There are a lot of things you just mentioned. My favorite is pressure washing.
I miss the pressure washing.
Because it may be $500 to $1,000, but I mean, it makes the house look just fresh and clean and shiny.
Yeah. That's money well spent for sure on most listings. Yeah.
And I think light fixtures is another one that I think people can appreciate, that's not a big expense.
True.
So those are some of the little things we talk about. Some of our big renovations I'm gonna talk about. The most important ones that buyers want is, of course, the kitchen. We just had a dinner party. Where did we never leave?
We all hung around the kitchen island. And we're gonna talk more about that later in this episode, the difference between maintenance and renovations. So stay tuned for that.
So kitchen, of course, is the heart of the home, the most important part. Buyers, most of the time, wanna come in, they wanna see a renovated kitchen, which does not usually just mean counters. They usually wanna see like new cabinets, counters, appliances, all those things. And it needs to be in this decade.
That's right. So often we'll see in a listing that it says renovated kitchen. That doesn't just mean you put a new slab of granite on.
Yeah. Or maybe you renovated your kitchen 15 years ago, but you've been in your house 30 years.
That's right.
So we really need to see renovations probably from the last 3 to 5 years to make sure it's on trend. But that always will give you a return on investment. Buyers always love a renovated kitchen. Number 2 most important is the owner's bath. You can never go wrong renovating that bathroom. Buyers really like to see full tile showers, seamless glass doors, new cabinetry, countertops, maybe a separate soaking tub instead of that. You know, the old style was like tiled all around.
Right, the whole corner was taken up by the bathtub. Yeah,
and a jetted,
really out.
No one uses jetted tubs.
They don't.
We don't need them.
With that, what would you say about the secondary baths?
If you have the budget, okay, but I really would not spend money on a secondary bathroom. I've never seen a buyer not buy a home because the secondary bathrooms were not renovated. So I think for ROI, return on investment, it's not worth doing.
As you can see, both small changes and big changes can make a world of difference. That's why it's important that you have an experienced realtor come take a look and kind of guide you as you prepare to sell.
Question number 4, how long does it take to sell a home?
Tricky question, but it can vary wildly. For example, we are in Peachtree City, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. So the numbers can vary greatly from the urban center of Atlanta, for example, out to the suburbs. So be aware of your location. If you are located in a suburb of a larger city, that we look at the numbers that are specific to your zip code, for example. The good news is in today's market, homes that are priced correctly, staged correctly, and market ready can still sell in a few weeks.
That's why having a professional strategy from the start really matters. In our market, currently, average days on market is 60. Let me explain that because that is a little confusing and I think consumers tend to think 60 days means that's how long it took to actually get from the contract to the closing and we sold our home in 60 days. And that is actually incorrect. It means it took 60 days from the time you listed the home to the time you had the contract. And typically it takes about 30 to 45 days to close a home, maybe sometimes 60 days. That's negotiable, of course, to actually close from the time you're under contract. One more thing that's really important we look at too when we're pricing a home, when we talk about how long does a home take to sell, we need to be the best value out there, which means we're really looking at what else is on the market and we need to be a better value, which doesn't always mean price. A lot of times it means price and condition, location, all of those things come together because it's a crazy statistic this year. So in our area in Fayette County, we've seen about 1/3 of the homes have price reductions. So we do not ever want to chase the market. If you chase the market, you're usually going to make way less. So let's get it priced right from the start.
That's all great information. And maybe if you are a seller and you have tried in the past to sell your home and it wasn't within that time range that you were expecting, maybe it's time to talk to a new real estate team and we can get you closer to the average for your area, like we said in this area, at least within 60 days.
Question number 5. What is the biggest mistake buyers and sellers make in this market?
Well, I'll start with sellers. And what I would say is overpricing from the start. A lot of time at listing appointments, we hear, well, I want to start with this number, even though it doesn't match the market numbers that we're presenting. And I like to give the analogy that we heard from a wise coach. It's just like chasing a soccer ball down a hill. And I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're chasing a soccer ball down a hill, you're very rarely going to be able to get in front of it. But if you start at a realistic number, you're already ahead of the ball. It's coming to you really, and you're not constantly chasing it down the hill. And we see the numbers for real estate behave just like that. So I think that's a great analogy, and trust the numbers.
And I really think sellers that price correctly actually make more. They don't have to do the reductions because the reductions hurt us. And when buyers see that, they think either something's wrong with the house or, gosh, I can get an even better deal because we've had reductions.
That's right. And you just mentioned the percentage of listings that we're seeing that do have price reductions. That number is growing. And so when you see it reduced, the seller's rarely going to come out ahead in that situation.
Yep. And the biggest buyer mistake that we're seeing, and we actually just saw it the other day with a buyer of ours, is waiting too long and overthinking if you want the house. And I know our human brains have to sometimes process, and some buyers can decide, like, they see a house and like, boom, I want it, we're writing a contract in an hour. Some need a day or two to process. But what I would say, anything more than a day or two, it gives a chance for someone else to come along. So we had a buyer look at a house. They thought about it. They took about a week to think about it. By the time they realized they wanted to offer on it, another buyer came along. And so they would have had to do a lot of really creative things to try to get the house because it was a contingent buyer. And it was sad because we could have gotten them into the house.
And one thing I will add, as buyers, you have the protection of the due diligence period. Don't forget about that. So if you go under contract, you still have a few days to sleep on it, have your inspections, have everything done. So that is the great thing about resale construction, is that you do have that time period.
And the joke that everyone always says, marry the house, date the rate, it's still the same. We are probably gonna see some interest rates drop a little, but again, don't let that stop you if your finances allow you to purchase.
Question number 6. What is the difference in a buyer's market and a seller's market?
Great question. It boils down to one specific term, absorption rate.
Very scientific.
Very. Let me explain. So our water hose outside is running. We shut the water hose off, no more water trickles. That means no one else could list their home. We're shutting off the hose. The market's completely stopped. How long from when it turns off until that last home is sold? How long does that period take? That's the absorption rate. So let's say we had a 3-month absorption rate. That would mean from the time we shut it off, no one else could list, it would take us 3 months to sell all the current inventory. So we're gonna explain the difference between a seller's, a balanced, and a buyer's market.
In a seller's market, the listing inventory is not enough to sustain the buyer pool at that certain time in that geographic area. In a seller's market, we'll typically see 4 months or less in the inventory at that time. In a buyer's market, seller listings will outnumber the number of buyers in a buyer pool in a certain geographical area, and typically that is 6 months of inventory or more for that area.
So what this means is if you're a seller in a seller's market, you're making some dough.
People are fighting over your house, in fact.
That's right. But in a buyer's market, you're loving being a buyer. You're coming in, you're getting negotiations, you're getting some closing costs, you're getting great repairs once you do inspection. Great time. Right now, I just saw something that we're around a 5-month balanced market. So we all feel like it's a slower market, but it's actually a very balanced, healthy market right now.
Speaking of balanced market, that is a time period when the buyers and sellers will feel an equal amount of power in the transaction, and the negotiations will reflect that. You probably give a little, you probably get a little. Everybody really goes to the closing table happy. Question number 7. How important is the interest rate really when you're buying a home?
We will talk through several different interest rate scenarios. So we're using an average price of $568,000 that I just looked up in Fayette County, and we're going to do a 5%, a 6%, and a 7% interest rate. And I'm going to tell you what those look like based on a 10% down payment. We're going to tell you the principal and interest payments. So on a price of $568,000, we're putting $56,800 down, which is 10%. So our loan amount will be $511,200, and that's based on a 30-year mortgage. If we were doing that at a 7% interest rate, that number would be $3,401. If we were doing it on a 6% interest rate, that number would be $3,065. And if we were doing it on a 5% interest rate, that number would be $2,744. So what this means is you're seeing, and thankfully we're kind of away from the 7% rates I'm happy about. The rates right now are cruising right around 6%. But let's say you wanted to wait and you're like, I really want to get to 5%. You're seeing a savings of, looks like maybe about $400 or so. If you look at it right now, though, we do have negotiation room for buyers. So if you could save $10,000 or $20,000 on the price of the house, you actually might come better ahead there over a short-term period than waiting for interest rates to drop. And like we mentioned, interest rates drop,
More
multiple
buyers
offers,
come
more
out.
buyers.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So again, the interest rate is not as impactful as people think. Now that we're getting rates to be a little lower, I don't probably think we're going to see those crazy 3.5% rates anymore. And if we do, we're probably all in trouble and the economy is really bad. So from what we're hearing, probably a 5 to 6% interest rate for quite a while to come. Question number 8. This is kind of one of my favorites when we go on listing appointments. What is the difference between home maintenance and home renovations when it comes to value for your home?
That's true. And when you see a listing advertised, sometimes they throw around words like updated, renovated, refurbished, well-maintained. What is the difference in all that, and why and how is that important? Let's start with maintenance. Maintenance are those things that should be ongoing things that as a homeowner get done. Let's think of things like HVAC tune-ups and repairs, things like cleaning out the gutters to keep the water away from the foundation. Just those everyday things that as a homeowner over the years that you're doing consistently. A well-maintained home can add value because you are keeping those little small issues from becoming bigger issues. And when you go to list your home for sale, that buyer is going to have an inspection. It's going to keep a lot of those things from coming up in the inspection, saving a lot of hassle and a lot of money when you are at your important phase of life and selling your home. You can also do something called a pre-inspection if you're preparing to list your home, and it can help you identify some of those little maintenance things, like let's say maybe a leaky faucet or a leaky pipe. You can have that fixed before you list your home, save a lot of headaches, save a lot of time and money before you get to that listing period. And this can prevent costly inspection nightmares during the listing period.
Let's talk about renovations. This is a fun one. This is where we put our money into things and we actually get to see the pretty shiny things. So this is anything that we add or enhance the home. Things that are going to make it both modern and more personalized, such as redoing the kitchen, redoing your bathrooms, adding a deck, patio, or maybe a screened-in porch, finishing the basement, that's another big one, adding a pool, especially anything that will add more square footage or usability to the house. These are things that will add appeal and value to your house, and buyers will choose your house over other listings.
Sometimes a few things can fall under the category of a renovation and maintenance. Think of like new windows. That really could fall under both. And I have a question for you. What do you think about roof replacement? Is roof replacement a maintenance issue or a renovation?
Karen and I love to banter back about things, so I personally think roof is part of maintenance. I think that sellers add $30,000 to a roof and then think they can now increase their price to $30,000. I just don't think it works that way. I think that buyers love to have that, but I don't think it adds value.
That's right. If a buyer were looking at a property and it had a new roof, I would think they would place more value on that property, especially if that was something that was super important to them, is to not have expenses coming up. So I definitely see it both ways.
And then the other one, roof and HVAC systems. Those are the two most expensive. as far as maintenance goes. What do you think about a new HVAC system?
I would not consider a new HVAC to be a renovation. It's not aesthetically pleasing to someone. Certainly adds value, especially down in the South where it gets so hot.
Yes.
Nobody wants to be burning up their first year in the home, having to pay for a new HVAC. I would put that in the maintenance category.
I agree. Buyers love to come in and have new HVAC systems. A lot of buyers with these big down payments and closing costs are high. They just don't have a lot of extra money to put in new HVAC systems. So we love that.
Anybody watching from California or where the weather is beautiful all year, you may not get it, but when you're moving to Georgia, you're going to want that HVAC.
Our winters are cold too, I think.
Yeah.
I'm from Arizona, so it's like they're cold. Question number 9, and this was near and dear to Karen and I's heart. Does a pool add value to a home? Well, we have actually not built 1, but 2 pools ourselves. You've got to watch the video we did on pool building. It was pretty fun and entertaining.
With pool prices in the Atlanta metro area surging well over $100,000, a lot of buyers want to see a home that already has a pool because maybe they don't want to spend $100,000, $200,000 out of pocket. So you have to look at it from an appraiser standpoint when you're listing your home. Appraiser values will vary, of course, but we are seeing appraisers giving more value to homes that do have pools, and we can talk a little bit more about that.
Karen, I'm glad you brought up the appraiser thing because that is what a buyer is going to pay and what an appraiser thinks something's worth are totally different. So an appraiser is someone the bank has hired. They go out and they appraise a home and they tell the bank what the home value is. That's not always the same as what buyers think. So we're talking about values, of course, for pools. And we are seeing pretty impressive numbers from appraisers. We used to see maybe only $20,000 or $30,000 that an appraiser would give a house with a pool. And buyers, we would see they wouldn't pay that much more for a house with a pool either.
That's true. Sellers, on the other hand, you may not get everything that you've put into the construction of the pool, but it's nice to see that appraisers are giving more value for those things. An appraiser is probably going to give a different value if it is, let's say, a liner pool with a basic deck, or maybe it's an in-ground pebble finish pool with a pool house. Of course, those are going to bring different values. But to say, does a pool add value to my home? It's case by case, but more buyers are wanting pools already, so they don't have to spend the money themselves. So I would say, yes, definitely adds value.
I say 100%, absolutely. We see houses with pools sell so much faster. I mean, I think right now we're seeing 70 to 80% ROI on what someone would spend on a pool.
And not even looking at the numbers, if you are just looking at days on market, I do think in the Atlanta area, it gets really hot here if you're watching from somewhere else. I think your days on market goes down because you have a more desirable property. So let's see everything is even. Let's say you don't get another penny for your home because of the pool. You're still going to sell it so much faster than the homes that don't have pools. So you can look at it from 2 different ways. It's harder to sell a pool in December than it is in May or June.
Yes. And what we tell our sellers is if we're selling your house in the winter, let's not cover up your pool. We need to leave it open and buyers need to see it. That's another little pro tip.
Pro tip. We hope we have answered some of your questions today, and whether you are buying or selling, the process just does not have to feel overwhelming if you are teamed up with the right real estate team.
At Dalke Home Group, we've helped hundreds of families make the smart move here in South Atlanta. Whether it be Peachtree City, Fayetteville, Tyrone, Sonoy, Trilith, and beyond, we are here and we would love to help you.
So Matthew, what do you think the most frequently asked question you get while showing homes would be?
Gosh, I would say it's definitely how old is the roof? How old is the HVAC system? Those are probably the biggest questions, and maybe what year was the home built. For our buyers and sellers, what's probably the most hot topic they asked you?
Right now from buyers and sellers, I get a lot of questions about vendor partners, like, oh gosh, I need this repair done, or we've moved in and now we're thinking about painting. You know, do you guys have people for that? The answer is always yes. We've worked in this area for so long that we always have a contractor for you to partner up. So hope that helps.
Yes, I love that. We try to make your lives easier and we've created great partnerships.
Obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to so many real estate questions. But if you have found this helpful, be sure to like and subscribe. and recommend this to maybe a friend who's looking to buy or sell real estate.
Also, make sure to comment on any questions you might have, and we will make sure to answer them. And if we get enough questions, we would love to make a part 2 to this video.
And remember,
Every move counts.